Welcome to the Hay Kings podcast, brought to you by Krone, dedicated to hay and forage producers. Today on the podcast, I'm joined again by TJ Steele. I just went back and looked. TJ and I have been recording and releasing podcasts for 4 years. Think Big is one of the most popular episodes we've ever had, and that takes us back to March of 2020. Welcome back.
Good to be back. I sure enjoy sharing our experiences and our equipment, and our mindset, different points of views. So glad that people are entertained and enjoy listening.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. How are you doing? What new project do you have?
Well, like we talked earlier, overall the hay market's pretty slow. That's all pretty tough for all of us across the board. So I think everybody's kind of in survival mode. All the equipment I'd say that we've custom built is definitely, I would say it's all been a positive. There's some negatives that come with it, but man, that big swather has been an amazing machine, which was part of that very first podcast.
Yeah.
It took us about 5 years to get that big baler lined out and running well, but it's unbelievable as far as capacity and production. So we don't get to put enough through them, as we should, but, we're still learning with them too. So, but that's been great. All the Terragator conversions have been awesome. We have to work on all of our own stuff, but overall we're doing pretty good. Still pretty high production, a lot slower the last 2 years just because we're not speculating on a lot of hay, which has kind of transferred us to some other deals. My local machine shop that helps build the parts and kind of helps support us. They basically kind of sold or shut down. So we ended up purchasing all the machinery and renting the shop. So we've got a full-on welding and machine shop at this point. We keep it pretty busy. The dairy keeps it pretty busy. We've done a couple of truck conversions, basically taking these fertilizer rigs and you put a fifth wheel, semi-style, a hitch on the back with a set of tandems, and you kind of have the functionality of a tractor on the front, easy access engine and radiator components, and Allison automatic transmissions, so they're super easy to drive. They're great out in the field when you're loaded, and no clutch slipping, clutch brakes or nothing like that. And that's really kind of grabbed more attention in this area than I really thought it would. And then we started a little baler project. I made a trip overseas and discovered this baler. I knew it was around, but everybody kind of talked about it, but you never get to see it. I went over there for another project for a big square baler and ended up meeting these guys and was able to, over a course of about 2 or 3 months, get it in the States and start running it. So it's one of the double balers, 14 by 18 chamber, running a vertical knife. So it's actually 14 by 32, split in two to give you the 2 bales. So you got twice the production, a lot more volume, a lot more throughput. Basically, at this point, we are the only sole importer, support, service, and everything for these balers here for a couple of years. We're helping them R&D them, and we're trying to get them out. If anybody purchases them, I'm your guy, and we're supporting them from kind of start to finish. So I got pretty high expectations for that, which is why I said earlier that, there's just other things that I want to put my mind and time to I love people in general. I like going to people's places. I like to find solutions for others. Obviously we've been pretty solutions oriented here for ourselves. So I just really have the desire to help others kind of reach that situation. So as labor is harder to come by and getting more expensive and equipment is more expensive, I just feel like that we haven't as producers or operators, I don't feel like have really been necessarily kind of paid back in a way for our investment in a lot of equipment. Like it's getting super high, but we're not gaining anything. And we've gained a lot of production. Like I've been kind of raked over the coals to say the hay industry has not come very far. Yes, we have came a long ways, but when you start out and you invest $100,000 in a new machine and now they're $200,000, like what did you gain for your 100? And the answer to that for about the last 10 years is slim to none. So our cost of operations getting way too high. And for a slow hay market across the whole United States, cost of operation is significant in comparison to your actual, retail price or sale price or contract price. So
this is something that I've spent a lot of time on talking with farmers. If you haven't updated your mental model on the price of equipment and parts, and you're still charging what you charged for hay 10 or 15 years ago, you are going backwards at an accelerating rate. It's a bit like the teenager that jumps in the car, throws it into reverse instead of drive and mashes on the throttle. Or in maybe even worse, where they mash on the throttle thinking that they're hitting the brakes, so they keep pushing the throttle harder. That's where a lot of the hay market is right now.
And, we invested a pile of money into this customized equipment. There's some definite negatives to it, like just the resaleability of it. You can't just go out and sell a stuff like you can a tractor on auction time or whatever. But that was the biggest thing that I changed for ourselves was I did not do this to sell it. Like we wanted to keep it long enough to have a high enough production life to make money with it, which is a lot like this little baler. It's like, okay, you're doubling your production. It's a price point I feel like that's very affordable. I'm impressed with the baler build, and I don't say that about very much equipment. So first off, I wouldn't be representing it if I wasn't, confident that the machine's going to turn out to be a pretty good machine.
TJ, you have a little bit of a reputation of both being one of the more intense users of hay equipment, and you've been a little rough on some of the equipment manufacturers.
Get big and get better with special financing from Krone.
And we just have the same problems
0.9% interest for 60
forever.
months on Krone Big Pack Square Balers. That's years of savings at less than 1% interest. Plus, get 2 free pallets of Krone Excellent twine with every Krone Big Pack. Get the bale size, density, and reliability that comes with every Krone Big Pack Large Square Baler. Go big, go Krone. Special financing ends November 30th. See your Krone dealer today.
But the problem is, there's a real short list of folks that have baled more hay than you have, right?
That's probably true.
Yeah.
And in the harsh conditions, so all of our stuff here is really accelerated, so
corn stover.
And we're going to find the weak spots on everything, whether it's because of the product or because of the terrain. I don't know how you'd even figure the millions and billions of wheel tracks for pivots that we've crossed in 15 years, it's just hard on stuff. So, our reputation is not always good because I get after them all pretty hard, but I'd say it like this. I got after them really hard when I was trying to make a living out of their stuff all the time. And after you start building your own, you can't really get after anybody else except yourself. And that's been peaceful, but yet humbling at the same time. Then
it's all on you.
Then it's all on you. So, but honestly, probably the peaceful part is the biggest enjoyment that I've had, like just the peace of mind that, no matter what breaks, we can overcome it. And you can on new stuff too, but your expectations are just different. Like I've said, like guys, some of these manufacturers, we've been doing this. I say all the time, we've been doing this for 50 years. And part of the time we still act like we're learning. And I'm not saying you got to have it figured out, but holy cow, there ought to be some things that are a lot more simple and advanced and better. So that's why I've always kind of been on that side of the fence, just because of our nature of what we do and the cost of what we're doing. And like I said, for me to represent a little baler that says I'm pretty confident in this thing, which is kind of what got the whole ball rolling anyway. I did not go over there for that machine. I didn't go to even meet that company, and I knew they had the baler, and we were at a farm show and I walked by and a couple of them recognized me and I had on one of our jackets. So they pulled me in and we just started talking about big swathers and big balers and all the stuff we've done. And I just asked, I said, hey, where's this baler at? And because it's not here. Well, it's at our factory. And long story short, I ended up flying to their factory while we were there and got to see it. Still had no intentions on doing anything. And, they were talking about R&D in it. And I said, look, if we're going to do this in America, like, you should probably be R&D in here. Like, that's what makes sense. Of course, I'm pretty passionate about R&D work and making sure things work right. So it's kind of down my alley. And I just made a joke. I said, well, I'm pretty sure if we could R&D a 9-foot round baler, a little square baler can't be that big of a challenge. So that's kind of what got the ball rolling. And then we just chatted back and forth, kind of created the opportunity. We finally got them here. A lot of challenges. It hasn't been as easy as, we had talked, but we get that baler pretty plain Jane. And this one, there will be some changes that come from the factory that will be implemented that we have done. But that's just kind of my genetic makeup. While I'm looking at something, I am processing in my mind, like, what needs to be changed and what is it not going to be able to do. And one of the first things that I noticed, the chamber is basically bolted on the back of the baler and there's no support. Okay, well, nobody's pulling a wagon with it. Anything you hang on the chamber is going to be hard on the chamber where it bolts on. You've already got a lot of pressure running through that chamber anyway. It's a double baler. You got to carry the bale longer, so I'm going through all this thought process, thinking of the things that need to be changed. And the more weight you carry out the back, the more stuff you add on the back, then that takes tongue weight off and, so on and so forth. And I didn't say much about it. And anyway, we got one here and basically a plain Jane model. And for those listeners, it's a Paxan twin hammer is what that's the baler. They make single balers. They make double balers. This is the only double baler so far that they've built. This is a 14 by 18 chambered baler, shoving out 2 bales. Got a continuous stuffer. The stuffer has a pre-chamber just like a regular square baler does, but it does run continuous. It's not clutched, which gives it, I think, a lot more volume and throughput. The stuffer runs on a rotating shaft with some carrier pieces on the top. Super simple design, really quiet. It's nothing that's changing directions all the time, so everything runs the same way. The only thing running back and forth is the plunger, which makes it for a really quiet, smooth operation. All the shear pins on it, if it's a timing deal, there's 2 different sizes of bolts, so you cannot time it 180 degrees off. If it's just a shear pin, then it doesn't matter, but if it has to do with timing, you can't mistime it. Because it's a rotor drive on the front, nothing turns fast. You're probably talking 100 RPMs maybe. I haven't put a gauge on it to see, but it's super quiet. There's just not a lot of ramming and jamming going on, which all that equates to high wear points and all that. So I think it's a really good machine, which is one reason why I kind of, ventured towards it. That timing on it, we discovered there's no timing marks. So, I understand balers and I know what it takes to maintain them. So basically we're going through this machine ourselves as we're running it. We've tore a lot of stuff apart. We've taken items off. I want to know how to work on it for myself so I can explain it to somebody over the phone. And it's worked well. Like, everything has been pretty easy to work on. The chain drives, there's just your knotter chain drive and that rotor, and that's it. 2 chains on the pickup. They're all easy to get to. So fairly simple for machinery. It's got weights, running on the connecting rod arms off the gearbox to help take a lot of that back and forth out of it. And this one is set up at 540, runs 82 strokes. If you run it, wide open, if you can get it to 600, you can get it up to about 85 or 88. It won't quite reach 90. We're talking about changing a gearbox, a little better flywheel, a little more counterbalance on the weights to smooth it out a little more. Aiming for at 540. To run 90 strokes, 95 strokes. And then if you run it wide open, you can get to 100. I've had a lot of guys request, well, let's run it on 1,000 and idle a tractor down. I agree.
Got to be a big tractor to do that, right?
Got to be a big tractor to do that. And somebody is going to tear it up doing that. Like, somebody's going to take that too far.
They're going to have it winging it at 140 strokes or something.
Yeah. And then they're going to want you to, warranty and stand behind it. And that's what creates bad bad circumstances. So I really hesitate to do that. Not saying we won't, but really hesitate to. So when we got it here, we already had the plates cut out. We plated the outside of the chamber at the back, which give us a lot of metal to add to fabricate with. You can add your preservative applicator. The hitch will be there. Anything that you need to add to the sides, you have metal there outside of just the chamber. And then that's supported by some side brackets that go right down to the axle, pretty similar to a big square baler. And then there are two, kind of shaped like an H, kind of similar. There's two cross members, then your hitch will go to that. So now we can pull a bear and you can pull wagons. You can put some weight on the back of it. It's not pulling on the chamber. It's all fastened down at the axle. And then the axle fastens to the main frame of the machine. And we widened all that stuff out, made it a little bit bigger, and then we slid the axle back 12 inches and put a torsion axle with flotation tires. And we used 8-on-8 hole hubs, so they're standard American hubs, easy to get. You can change wheels if you want to, just standard 8-on-8s. And went with a 380/80 16.5, which is pretty common in most newer equipment. And it's a fairly flat-faced tire. So with the torsion axle, you can pull it down the highway at 55, 60, just tootle right along. And I thought about going to a little bigger tire, but if you do much roading, if you get into them big balloon tires like a 21.5, you always wear the sidewalls out. And yeah, they give you quite a bit of cushion, but that torsion axle kind of takes care of that. So there'd be a 21.5 option for it, I believe, but we have to get a different axle to put in it. So, and then we've kind of developed our own electrical system, partnering with some guys that have already been in that space. And, you're going to monitor flake counts, load pressures through your chamber. Scales will be available, integrated with it. Hoping we get the moisture integrated with it. That's a topic we got to kind of get through. Of course, your bale count, total bale count will always be in there. That whole monitoring system front to back, which the load monitoring system for anybody that runs a big baler, it's basically exactly the same. If you're familiar with a Massey, that's basically the goal. So then you got load bars right and left because it's a double baler. And if you get in smaller windrows, bale uniformity has been a big topic. My answer to that is you didn't buy a double baler to run at half capacity.
Right. Big windrows right in front of that tractor.
You get a big windrow in front of it. That's the whole purpose of it. So everybody says, well, we got last cut and light cuttings. Well, true, but maybe you need to buy a bigger rake or spend a little more time raking. Again, you're not wasting the capacity of the baler. And if you do, then it will still do it. I've been pretty impressed with what it will do, but you're going to have to be an operator, so to speak, to get that bale uniform. And that monitoring system is going to tell you real time every time the plunger hits, which side's tougher, right? So it'll have that drive arrow, right, left, which is so fast that it's going to react pretty quick. So that's probably going to be a little difficult, but you can at least see that from the cab. The controller will have at least 4 to 6 other outputs. The fans are going to run, when the baler fires up, the fans will kick on. So if you're fixing a knot or if the baler's off, the fans aren't running. Your lights will be back there. Running 10 gauge wire clear up to the tractor battery, which in a way is kind of, the monitor's not as easy, to wire up if you got to run to the battery, but you got full power back there. And now you can run all your preservative applicators. If you got to pull power from anything else, you've got power back at that controller on the baler, and you don't have to run any other wires, to the front. You can capture it all right there about mid-frame on the baler. We're putting some bigger boxes on it, twine boxes as well. Most of that kind of stuff will come from them. We did also put hydraulic tension on it. It came with just regular springs, so we made that upgrade. We built all that stuff. So everything I mentioned, we have built all of it. So, we have a base price, what I'd say just kind of an entry price, plain Jane. I can wire it up to your tractor, which turned out to kind of be a challenge. Lighting's not the same. So we almost had to rewire the whole thing just for taillights and fan and that stuff. Uh-huh. So, just that plain Jane base model, is $85,000, give or take a little.
And this is 2025 pricing.
Yep. As far as I know right now, like I said, we don't have all that in yet, but I don't look for it to change that much. And then if we load it up with every aspect of change that we've talked about, not knowing some of those numbers, I've been saying 125 to 135 because we don't know exactly what some of the electronic stuff's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing I'd also tell listeners, you got to keep in mind that I have skin in the game on these things. Like, I have to purchase every one of them that comes into American soil. So I'm invested, so I want them to work, and we're going to stand behind them to make sure they work, the best that we possibly can. I'm one guy, and we're in the Texas Panhandle, and we're talking a lot of miles between a lot of area. However, I'm less than 24 hours from anywhere, and I'm a phone call away. And if I understand how they run and can work on them over the phone to fix them, and before they leave, if you've got a good care package for parts and they're self-explanatory, if you're any kind of a mechanic, I don't see any reason why you couldn't keep it running. And we may be a little choosy on those guys as well. Like, I hate to say it, but I'm not going to deny anybody the sale of a machine, but at the same time, these aren't just a weekender type of machine. So you need to understand it. If you're in a big enough operation that there's a demand on these machines, most likely you're going to know how to keep them running. So that's kind of the rundown on them. I've been pretty impressed with it, what we've done with it. We had a really good test on some Bermuda grass down here by Hereford, and it was just late stuff. So it's pretty short. It was really fluffy. We had a little trouble keeping it in a pickup when the wind was blowing about 25 miles an hour to start with. But that night we came back, made some changes to our chute, and we got all that stuff figured out, and had some otter troubles we kind of got figured out. And we did get them figured out. And, the best he could do, we had it on a 6230 John Deere, so 100 horsepower, no weights front or back. And if he ran right at 540, that was where it run the smoothest on that tractor. So you're talking about 82 strokes a minute. He hit 7 ties a minute if the hay and the windrow and everything fit, if it would just worked well in those conditions for speed and windrow size. Because, of course, you got a power shift, but there's gear jumps or whatever. So when it was full at 6 miles an hour, it computes to like 840 bales a minute. 7 ties times 2, 14 times your 60. 6 ties is really easy. That's 700 and something. That was very consistent. Day in, day out, around the field, variation of windrows, us stopping him. 600 is pretty easy average. You're going to have guys say, I can punch 600 through a 1240. Well, I'm not saying you can't, but best of luck to you, on a long-term deal.
That might not be your all-time average.
Yeah, not your all-time average. And if that's what you're looking at, then I probably don't necessarily need to sell you a double baler. I mean, in all honesty, if you're telling me you're getting 600 an hour out of it, then why do you need a double one?
Yep.
Go for it, So I'm looking for realistic. I'm looking for real guys, that want to be profitable in it and take care of the machine. And let's see how many bales they'll punch out. And, we're going to be there to try to help keep them set up and, do our best. I can't promise the world, but we're sure going to do our best. And so far, honestly, the reputation that we've had on about everybody that's looked at it or that's been in contact, it's, man, if you're standing behind it, we're on board. If it has your blessing, then we're for it, So I think that'll be a big selling point as well. Get to sell part of our experience along with it. So,
yeah.
Let's take a break there and we'll get a word from our sponsor.
What's the big deal? Right now, get 0.9% interest on Krone Big M mower conditioners and Krone Big X forage harvesters with 36-month terms on Big X and 60 months on Big M. That equates to years of savings on the Krone equipment you need. Plus, get extended warranties on both the Big M and Big X. 3 years or 2,400 hours. Big performance, big throughput, big comfort. Go big, go Krone. Special financing ends November 30th. See your Krone dealer today.
I mean, there's a lot of value in that. TJ, that's why I'm excited to have this conversation, is that you don't have a big head in any way, shape, or form. But like I said, there's a very short list of folks that have baled more hay than you. And for you to put your stamp on anything is pretty darn valuable. And you're telling me that it's good to start with, which I actually find it hard to believe that something meets your expectations. And then you're going back to the drawing board with it and saying, well, here's the changes that I would make to it. And then you're making the changes and putting it out there for sale. That sounds like a pretty darn good deal to me.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things I looked at, was the way it's making a bale, like all of the process internally, is how well built, how well does it flow, are the internal components worth building around? If you've got the heart of a machine that's good, cosmetically and all the outside stuff is literally metal and bolts. But if the heart of it's not any good, it's never going to be good. It's short-lived life. If everything falls down, you can have a gearbox that'll last 200,000 bales or 500,000 bales, but if the rest of the machine isn't built well enough to get there, well, that doesn't serve any purpose, and vice versa. If you have a, for a big square baler, say, if you had a 200,000 bale machine, but your gearbox is only good for 50,000, like you got to find that balance. And a lot of the stuff I feel like is kind of unbalanced in that big square baler world. I mean, they're good machines, and in the right products, they do run a long time, but there's a lot of flaws in a lot of that stuff. So that's what I looked at in this little baler. I just said, look, if it's internally going to be good enough, then we can kind of do the stuff on the outside. And, it's a difference in cultures and demands and areas. And that's why I said, hey, we need it in the U.S. to where we can see these things, And generally speaking, we're going to put a lot more bales through them. You're going to have guys that are shoving a lot more bales through them in a year than what they're going to see elsewhere. So, that's one reason, biggest reason why I said you're just going to have to get them here, and we're going to go through that together. So, like I said, for me to put my stamp on it, I'll agree. And I wouldn't have done it if I did not believe in it. Like I said, I wouldn't have touched it. I got enough stuff to do. And I thought
that I believe,
there is an opportunity there. And like I said, in the back of my mind and what people don't necessarily see on social media is like, I really myself would like to transition away from a lot of the production side, because I enjoy the equipment side so much more. And I love building stuff. I like improving things. And, one of the things that everybody always says is like, I'm a problem solver. So when nobody else can figure it out, that's when I get the phone call, and that's fun, when nobody else has been successful. And I'm not saying there's not anybody smart enough to do it. That's not the point, but I'm determined enough to do it. So like, I'm going to figure it out. And, the solution may not be achievable, but if we figure it out, at least we know what that issue is. So I thrive in that kind of environment. And I just like to do that stuff. So I thought, this would be a good opportunity. I'm going to get to travel a little bit, and actually probably quite a bit. So we'll get to travel and represent it and meet people and, do some things with it. And, we got to figure out pretty quick here through the month of January what them sales orders are going to be, because I got to get enough here to try to take care of that first wave. And I just encourage the guys that are interested. One, you need to look at it and see it run, because everybody that has seen it has been pretty impressed with the production and the build of the baler. And second off, like, I am willing to work with guys to make sure it works. Like, I'm not a one and done, sell it and see you later type of deal. Like, hey, we're gonna figure it out together. So there's some fun in that. On the guys that'll start with one, and in a couple of years, see how many bales they've got through them and learn together. And I'll also say, like, I don't want a me customer on the other end of it, the experiences that I've had in other equipment, and hey, if it don't work for your operation, I'll just take it back, like, no harm, no foul, just get it off your place. I'm fine with it. So I've been there, done that, and I can sell it to somebody that wants it easier than I can argue with somebody. So that's kind of my philosophy on it.
I like your sales style.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell guys too. I'm not a salesman. I can just represent it. I'm not a good salesman, but I'm not going to be sales pitchy on it. I'm going to tell you the pros and the cons on it, and be upfront about it. And you're going to run it for yourself and figure it out, see if you like it or not. There's nothing to hide on it. So we're just doing our best. And I'm not a big OEM, there's not a huge parts counter. And I mean, most of our stuff is, it's not very flashy. even though for the amount of equipment we have, we're pretty basic. So, I'm just one of the guys. I'm no different than the guy looking at it. We're all out there to make a living and make it work. And that's what I want to do, see people be successful with a machine. And to be honest, at a price point that's affordable. We kind of touched on that earlier, and man, the price of stuff is just horrendous. And, we've just got to get to a point where we can make some money, because I don't know where this train's going, but I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know where the train's going, but I'd say I hopped off of it about 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I just got off. I couldn't see where we're headed. Or I could see where we're headed. So I got off of it. And man, I don't know. It worries me a little bit. There's always going to be new equipment. There's always going to be somebody to buy it. And that's always going to keep it going around and around. But I would say there's always hay to make. And I would say long term, there's probably going to be less and less and less new equipment that's affordable. So what are we going to do? Are we rebuilding stuff? Is it even rebuildable? That kind of stuff. So not to be pessimistic, but I mean, I've seen it coming. And if you watch the custom harvesters, and combining, and you follow that trend that they've went through, I mean, everything in my opinion kind of follows that, because the lack of labor, the cost of the machines, the traveling, the guys quitting, all those things are relative to everything else we do as producers. But I'd say they're probably just 3 to 5 to 10 years ahead of the trend, because they're on the forefront. So I really watch that aspect pretty hard. Like I'd heard the other day, one of the X9 1100 combines sold on an auction, and it cost $1,400 an hour, in depreciation.
Oh,
that's not sustainable.
Oh, this is the thing that I never understand about guys that flip equipment.
Yeah.
Frequently, that depreciation expense. And in this case, it's a real expense. We're not talking about tax depreciation. TJ, it's been great to have you on the podcast.
Great to be back.
I wish you all the best in your new endeavor with these new pack sand balers. If folks want to learn more information, how do they get a hold of you?
So probably the best way is through Messenger on Facebook. If you don't have my number,
Perfect.
You can just contact me through there. It's probably the best. If you look through a lot of our posts, you'll find my phone number. If you're on Facebook, the Pack Sand Double Baler page featured a write-up with myself in there as being the U.S. representative. So there's some contact information there.
And that's TJ Steele, Steele.
Eele. Yep, correct. And Facebook Messenger, I'm on TikTok, but as far as social platforms, Facebook's probably the easiest to message through to get a hold of me. And then, email just timjim_3@yahoo.com. That's one thing we do have to work on. I'd say too, we're going to change some of our Facebook stuff and give some better ways. We've created another website. We used to be Favor 5 Ag Innovations, and now we've changed that to Steele Ag Innovations just to simplify it. So there's some websites there. Created a new website here just a month or so ago when we went down to the farm show to where we could have a little bit better representation and easier ways for people to get a hold of us. So, but after you get a hold of the phone number, I mean, that's the biggest thing, phone number and email. And that's about the easiest way to do it. And I'll just say, a phone number, 620-482-6271. It rings quite often. So if I don't get a hold of you or reach you, then send a text and we'll be sure to get back with you.
I want to say a special thank you to our guest today, and a thank you to Nick Palmieri at Palmieri Sound for doing all of our audio editing, and a thank you to Jessica Palmieri for doing all of our social media coordination.